navigation and opened the wide Pacific to air operations for the first time. Averaging only about 100 miles per hour in the face of continual headwinds, navigating to a small island in the vast Pacific was an outstanding achievement in the annals of flight. The Bird of Paradise flew over 2,400 miles non-stop from California to Hawaii. The date, June 28, 1927.
Well, a windmill will raise water, so why shouldn't it raise an airplane? Perhaps that's what Mr. Jonathan Caldwell thought when he designed and built this contraption, which is being shown to the public for the first time. The mill wheels going round are supposed to represent the flapping wings of a goose. The wheels turn all right, but it just won't leave the ground, not even when they drag it. It moves, though. A good idea just the same. For better luck next time.
No, it's not an airplane, and it isn't a balloon. It's a spindle airship. The new invention that Papa, the inventor, will explain the idea for us.
In place of wings, we use spindles on this ship. The large ones are the main lifters, and the small ones act as stabilizers. This is done by spiraling, so that the landing speed would be about 5 to 10 miles per hour.
Now, as they revolve, the spindles, with their little indentations, are creating a lifting vacuum above. Engineers predict the spindles will be more efficient than the wings of an airplane. There's only this about the spindle airship. She hasn't flown yet, but who can say she won't?
Meet the professor, folks. For 20 years, he's been watching the Killylouberg and has finally discovered what makes it fly. All it takes is a tank full of oxygen, a left-handed monkey wrench, and a couple of nuts. Here we go. History in the making. It's the happiest day of the professor's life. Let's hope he puts salt on its tail. Going, that's all.
Folks, here I am with a new device called the ornithopter. This device, I expect to attain flight in the air. Through a system of leverage advantage, plus a man's physical power, I believe it's possible to fly as a bird. And here I am. You can look this device over. It appears heavy. It's light.
Well, that sounds okay if it works. But if Bertie doesn't fly, when he makes that jump, he's going to get a real cold bath. Here he goes. Splash-o. Well, he got the bath all right.
Here you see another type helicopter or direct lift air machine. Our principle, as you will see, is a flat plate or disc type propeller moving the air fast enough to produce a lift. Our engine is connected to our transmission by a jack shaft driven by a chain. Our transmission takes and reciprocates our propeller. As the propeller goes up, we get our lifting power on the down reciprocation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll show you how this works.
We couldn't get excited about the possibilities of this clumsy contraption, daddy of the helicopter, as it soared a full 24 inches into the air. And some of the new ideas in planes made us think that aviation was dropping into its second childhood.
Glenn Curtis, an American pioneer of flight, was also present at the French meet. Curtis was the first American to use wheels on an airplane. Nobody was quite sure what an airplane ought to look like or sound like. The Albessard was a two-wing plane with the two wings in a rather unusual position. A French critic called this the most chic airplane in the meet. Any cyclist could fly, providing his legs were strong enough and his wings were long enough. This was another early experiment. You began in the air on a string. You ended in the air on a string.
And those guys with their flying bicycles hadn't given up either. Get this guy. Crazy pogo stick, huh? Some guys never gave up. This fella couldn't make up his mind whether to build a glider or a sloop. I guess he called it a gloop. You know, funny thing, it flew a little.
Still trying to find ways to fly like a bird. Like this gentleman. For reason or reasons unknown, he didn't quite make it. Yes, even jets for bicycles. Well, if not now, eventually, maybe.
Hi everyone. Hello. Hello. Well, where's my hand? There it is. Hi. How goes it? Wow, my hair is kind of nuts. All right, I'm Skip Alzheimer. I collect old educational films as part of the AV Geeks archive, AV Geeks mission, and part of my mission is to share films with you all over the world. Some of you have been following me. Last week, we did a lunchtime screening where I'd show about an hour or so of films from our archive. I am kind of locked down at the house and not at the archive. I have assistants who are working there, but I am here because of my wife's health. She's high risk, and so we're just kind of hanging out, walking a lot, watching some movies, watching some old TV shows. Yeah, doing a lot of watching. So I appreciate you guys watching with me. I'm sure we're all getting a lot of screen time in. But what's for lunch? I made pulled pork last night. That was entirely too spicy, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to make it not so spicy. I like spicy food, but this one is kind of over the top. So, anyways, yeah, so we watch old films, and I am happy that you guys are joining us. I have a variety of different films. That last one was kind of a really weird compilation. I mean, it's like somebody went and took footage from multiple sources because the narrator keeps changing and the audio keeps dropping out. So, and I think that Walter Cronkite is actually is narrating one of the scenes. So I think somebody just went through and pulled a bunch of 16 and clipped it all up and then printed a new film from it. That's pretty great. But one of the things I want to say is, I've been trying to give myself some structure here. I am basically self-employed, so I don't really have a lot of structure to begin with, but this is definitely giving me some structure to kind of hang out with you guys, plan out what I'm going to show, and to be on time. And this next film is all about the importance of being on time. So here we go. Enjoy.
Has your mother ever called to you? It's time to go to school now. Are you ever busy the way Jimmy is when your mother tells you it's time to do something? And have you ever answered the way Jimmy does? In a minute. But will Jimmy be ready to go in a minute? What do you think? Some of the children are already at school. Others are on their way. It won't be long before the bell rings. Should Jimmy's mother have to do this? Is Jimmy grown up enough to think for himself about getting to school on time? There's the school bell, and Jimmy isn't here yet. Today is a special day in Jimmy's class. Miss Harvey has arranged a visit to the fire station to learn more about how firemen live and how they help us. Before the class goes, they want to think about what they'll look for. Someone asks, what do firemen do when they're not fighting fires? Well, here comes Jimmy to school at last. Do you think he should have started when his mother called him? Miss Harvey is wondering if Jimmy is coming today. He's supposed to help take roll on the trip. She will have to ask Bob to do it instead. Just then, Jimmy comes in, but he's too late to help Miss Harvey. Do you think he has been courteous to the class? Do you think his classmates like it when he makes them wait? Jimmy doesn't have a chance to think about the notes on the board. And now it's time to go to the fire station. So, because he was late, Jimmy misses out on things, besides annoying others. At the fire station, the fire chief is ready because he knew what time the class would be there. Sometimes when they are not fighting fires, firemen work to get their equipment ready. That way, when they have to go in a hurry, they are sure they won't be delayed. For when the alarm bell rings, it means come. The chief shows them how prompt the firemen are. Suppose this alarm bell should ring. The firemen in bed would leap out. Why, look, they even have their clothes and boots ready so they can come without delay. No wonder they can move so fast. Well, it's later now, and Jimmy's class is going back to school. But they have to stop and wait for a train. Jimmy is thinking. If you were supposed to be somewhere on time, and you were late because you had to wait for a train, would that be a good reason for being tardy? Sometimes people are late and they can't help it. They have a good reason. Jimmy thought, are trains ever late? Well, sometimes, although railroad men try hard not to be late, because many people depend on trains to get them places on time. That evening, Jimmy is playing in his room when suddenly, what time is it? It's almost 7:30. Why do you suppose Jimmy wants to know? Where is he going? He wanted to see his favorite television program, which starts at 7 o'clock.
Be sure to tune in next week at 7 o'clock for Rocket Roger of the Space Force.
Well, Jimmy missed his program because he wasn't on time. And Jimmy is beginning to wonder what might happen if no one were on time. What if no one did anything when he was supposed to? What might happen if firemen didn't come when they were called? What if the fireman said, "In a minute"? What if trains didn't run on time? Suppose people at the next station had to wait and wait before the train would come. What if the engineer didn't feel like leaving this station on time? Maybe wait until he finished reading the paper. No, things wouldn't go very well if everybody made other people wait all the time. Jimmy thinks it's a good thing that engineers and firemen and other people try to do things at the right time. And he's decided he's never going to be late again. Whenever Mother says it's time to do something, he's going to do it right away. He won't miss dinner time, nor his favorite program. He won't be late for school, nor late going to bed. Well, Mother is glad that Jimmy is going to work to be on time. Perhaps once in a while, even when he tries very hard, he'll be late because he can't help it. Suppose Jimmy came home late for dinner one night. If he had to walk his bike home because the chain broke, would that be a good reason for being late? One way to keep from being late is to have a plan for doing things, and then stick to that plan. Get things ready beforehand if you can. Remember what a fireman does? He knows he won't have much time after the alarm rings. He gets ready in advance, so he won't lose any time when it comes. Well, Jimmy doesn't have to get ready to go to a fire tomorrow, but he does want to get to school on time. Next morning, Jimmy's things are ready, so he won't waste any time looking for his clothes. And Mother and Jimmy are going to work out a way to plan time better. See, it's 8 o'clock now, and Jimmy has to be in school by 9 o'clock. So Mother will help Jimmy find out just how much time it takes to do each thing. Let's watch the clock and see. Now, Jimmy is finished in the bathroom and he's all dressed. It's 8:15, so that takes him about 15 minutes. How long does it take you to do these things? When Jimmy is just about through with breakfast, it's 8:45, 8:45. How much time has it taken Jimmy to finish breakfast? How much time does it take you? Well, it's a few minutes later, and Jimmy has brushed his teeth and is on his way to school. How long does it take him to get to school? Will he get there on time today? Well, he's not wasting time on the way this morning. Uh-oh, what's this? Looks mighty interesting. Should he stop and watch? Maybe it'll still be here this afternoon. By now, many children are already at school, playing before the bell. And here comes Jimmy. He made it, on time. But just barely. It's time to go in now. It's almost 9 o'clock. How long does it take Jimmy to get to school? Let's think about the clock. 15 minutes to get dressed. Half an hour, 30 minutes, to eat breakfast. That's 45 minutes. And almost 15 minutes to walk to school. That's just about 1 hour in all, isn't it? If Jimmy wants more time to play before school, he could get up earlier. Jimmy has found that he can be on time if he knows how long it takes to do something or go somewhere, if he starts early enough, and if he doesn't dawdle on the way. Anyone can be on time. It helps your family, your friends, your school. It's more fun for you when you've learned to be on time.
Oops. So since I don't actually have a visual representation of like how much longer I have on a film reel, because we're playing back files of stuff I've digitized over the last couple of years, including some new stuff. This was part of a new batch that we digitized last month, and but anyways, I don't have any sense of like when the films end. So if I'm not watching a particular screen, I don't and see the end, then I'm like, oh crap, and like run over and do it. Anyways, that's part of the Beginning Responsibility series the Coronet did. Includes lots of great films, and there's a couple others we have in the series that we'll be showing. But one of the most popular ones, of course, is Lunchroom Manners, which features Mr. Bungle, the puppet that nobody wants to mimic, but everybody actually does want to mimic. So one of the things, since we're all stuck at home, we've been doting on our pets. I'm sure a lot more. They're digging it. Or in the case of my cat, she seems very irritated that we're still around the house. I think she wants some quiet time. So sometimes she'll go in the closet and just kind of give herself a break from all those people that are around. So here's a film that addresses that issue, Encyclopaedia Britannica's Care of Pets.
Pets are fun,
Want to take a bath, Tony?
but they are also a responsibility. Linda has learned that there are many things which she must do to keep her canary, Tony, an attractive and healthy pet.
Just a minute, Tony.
The water for Tony's bath mustn't be either too hot or too cold. How will Linda get Tony to his bathtub without letting him out of his cage? She slides out the bottom of the cage. So that's how she does it. The paper on the floor of the cage gets dirty and needs to be changed every day or two. Linda has clean paper ready. This container is filled with fine gravel. Do you know what the gravel is for? Birds have no teeth. Tony will swallow some of this gravel, and inside his stomach, it will help to grind up the food he eats. Tony bathes by splashing water all over himself. You can see why Linda covered the table with newspapers. She wants to keep everything clean. The mixture of seeds in this container is specially prepared for canaries. Tony is through with his bath, so Linda puts his cage back together. After his bath, Tony has an appetite. If Tony were a wild bird, he would have to find his own food. But since he is a pet, he depends on Linda for everything he needs. Tony will be thirsty after he eats. Linda keeps this cup filled with fresh, cool water. Tony has had his bath, his cage is clean, and he has plenty of fresh food and water. Now he's ready to spend the day on his perch by a sunny window. Fish make fine pets, but Jack can tell you that fish, like any other pet, require daily care. The fish in this aquarium are called fantails. They are a kind of goldfish. The fantails are waiting to be fed. Can you see why they are called fantails? The other aquarium is the home of several different kinds of tropical fish. Tropical fish can live only in warm water, so Jack sees to it that their water never becomes chilled. Between 70 and 80 degrees is just right. This electric water heater warms the water when it gets too cool. The red light glows when the heater is working. The green plants Jack keeps in the water are important. Fish need to breathe just as we all do. We get our oxygen from the air, but fish get theirs from water. And green plants give off oxygen into the water. If you look very closely, you can see the bubbles of oxygen rising from the plants. This drawer is where Jack keeps the supplies he needs to take care of his fish. Jack feeds his fish once a day. A few pinches of food are enough. Jack knows that overfeeding his fish would be unhealthy for them. The fantails don't seem to be very hungry. This is an electric pump. The pump forces air through this tube, and the air makes the water in the aquarium pass through this filter. The filter is a device that keeps the water clean by catching and collecting any dirt that gets into the water. The dirt is caught in a soft material called glass wool. This piece of glass wool has caught so much dirt that Jack must change it. In a few days, this fresh piece of glass wool will also be black with dirt it has collected from the water. Something's the matter with the fantails. They're gasping. Their water must not have enough oxygen in it. Jack will have to take care of that. The water in a goldfish aquarium must be changed every few weeks. Jack does that without disturbing the fish by using a siphon. The siphon is simply a length of tube. Jack's father has taught him how to make a siphon work and how to use it safely. And now some fresh water, exactly warm enough, poured carefully into one corner so that it won't stir up the gravel or frighten the fish. fantails are hungry now. It's fortunate for them that Jack knows how to take proper care of his pets.
Morning, Calico.
Calico's favorite food is raw meat cut into small pieces. Annette knows just about how much Calico will want for his breakfast. Calico also likes milk. Annette sees to it that her pet always has something to drink, either milk or water. After his meal, Calico licks himself clean. Cats try hard to keep themselves clean, but Annette can help. A good brushing every day keeps Calico's coat clean and shiny. And there's another good reason for Calico's daily brushing. When Calico licks his own fur, he may swallow loose hairs, and these hairs may collect into a ball in his stomach and make him sick. A good daily brushing removes these loose hairs from his coat.
Here's your scratching post, Calico.
Annette does something else for Calico before she leaves for school. Cats need to scratch. It's much better for Calico to scratch on his scratching post than to scratch the furniture.
So long, Calico.
Annette has left a toy for Calico to play with. She knows that there's nothing Calico likes better than a catnip mouse. This is Nipper. He's 3 months old. This is Terry. He's Nipper's master. Terry is fixing Nipper's breakfast. Warm milk over dried puppy food. Nipper has had a good night's sleep in his comfortable bed.
Soup's on, Nipper.
Now he's ready to eat. Nipper eats 3 times a day while he's a puppy. When he's older, he will eat less often.
Nipper, come on, Nipper. That's a boy.
Terry is training Nipper to walk on a leash. Nipper still pulls quite a lot and gets himself twisted up sometimes. This is a dog run. The dog run gives Nipper plenty of freedom and a chance to get lots of exercise. It also gives him a chance to get used to being on a leash.
Hi, Nipper boy. You have a good run?
Soon Nipper will have learned to walk properly on a leash, going no slower and no faster than his master. A good combing and brushing every day does a lot to keep Nipper clean. But every month or so, Nipper needs a bath. The water is warm, and Terry uses a special soap made for dogs to clean his pet. After soaping, Terry gives Nipper a good rinse with warm water. Terry knows that it's very important to dry Nipper thoroughly after his bath. Terry will also make certain that Nipper stays warm for the next few hours so that he won't catch cold. That shot will keep Nipper from getting a disease called rabies. The veterinarian, a doctor for animals, helps Terry protect the health of his pet. Of course, a healthy dog is not necessarily a well-behaved one.
Don't chew that rug.
That's the way, Terry. Speak firmly to your dog when he does anything wrong. Here's something Nipper can chew on, a toy made of hard rubber. And Terry praises Nipper for doing the right thing. All pets require care. Terry knows that it's his responsibility to take care of his pet, to feed him, to train him, to keep him clean. In return, a well-cared-for pet like Nipper will always be ready to give his master pleasure and fun.
Oh, wow. Yes. Kind of goes through it all with the pets. No mention of iguanas, though. I used to have iguanas, and no mention of those. Or reptiles. So we dabbled in the 50s and 60s a little bit, in the earlier. Got to mix it up a little bit. I got to bring in some 70s wackiness. It's interesting that a lot of the educational film companies like Coronet and Encyclopaedia Britannica had very, it seems somewhat conservative or very normal things. But things went wacky in the late 60s and 70s. And I have lots of theories about that. One of the reasons is, filmmaking got wacky. Pop culture got wacky. There were tighter edits. There were Dutch tilts. There was all sorts of insanity. The other thing is, I think that kids were basically watching a lot of television. And so the visual, going to school and watching a film just doesn't, you have a lot of other visual stuff that kids are watching, are being engaged with. So you kind of upped the ante as far as what got a kid's attention. So they tried to make films that would capture a kid's attention by showing them odd things or odd stories or whatever. And so I kind of delight in looking at a film that was made in the 50s and then how they updated it and what they did to make it kind of compelling for kids to pay attention to, while balancing, like, this is so interesting that kids are just going nuts over it and they really miss whatever educational value there was. So I'm going to let you watch this next film and figure out, did they get it right? This is Toothache of a Clown. Enjoy.
Come on in.
Come in, Mr. Clown, please. Come in.
Poor Clown. You can't brush with a toothache.
Here's your friend, Lynn. He didn't have any cavities. Next patient, please. Oh, Mr. Clown. Let's take a picture first. A picture of your tooth, Mr. Clown. Hold the film for me. There. Wasn't that easy?
Well, Mr. Clown, you have a big cavity. You'd better take better care of your teeth. Susie, can I have a mirror? Open real big like an alligator. Big as you can. Oh, real wide. There's the cavity, Mr. Clown. That's what's hurting. Let's put that tooth to sleep for you. Real big like an alligator. One more time. Little pinch way back there. How does that feel? That should make it feel better. Wide as you can. Oh, don't you worry now. Real good. This will make it feel a lot better. There we go. Now we'll get the candy bugs out of there, okay? Real good. You must have been eating a lot of sticky food, Mr. Clown. Did you know that the bacteria that cause decay live in sticky food and raise big families? There we are, Mr. Clown. Do you know how to prevent cavities?
It's important that you keep the inside of your mouth clean at all times.
Susie, why don't you show them how to do it?
You should brush or rinse every time you eat. You brush your teeth the way they grow, down from the top, up from the bottom. You brush the chewing surfaces and the backs of your teeth. Do you understand that?
Well, Mr. Clown, that ought to make you feel better. You take care of those teeth and you won't have any more trouble. See you on your next checkup. Goodbye. Remember, rinse or brush after you eat.
There you go. Wow, that film was so great. Yes, and people make connections with another film I showed last week called Are You Listening?, where there's a giant mouth who's a teacher, and the students are little ears, and they go to the zoo. So yes, there is a little bit of a theme of giant body parts. Kids dressed as giant body parts. But two totally different companies. One was ECI, and it was based in Texas. This one, I don't know, this one had a twang to it too. It'd be interesting. So ECI distributed films, and as did sometimes Encyclopaedia Britannica, so it'd be interesting to see if there was a commonality here. But that was kind of nuts, don't you think? I still really like watching that film and showing that film. And the challenge was, like, how do we get kids to not be afraid of dentists, going to the dentist? And it's by showing a clown going to the dentist, which is, for some children, would be a bad idea to watch that, because it's replacing one anxiety with another anxiety. And that's why I like watching these films and showing them to folks like you, is because these filmmakers made these decisions, trying to the challenges that they had. And this was sometimes based on feedback that they got from actual teachers when they made the films. But sometimes it was just like a filmmaker was like, I'm going to make an educational film, and we're going to have clowns, and we're going to have giant teeth walking around, and yeah, it'll be a great idea. And maybe I'll get some educational film company to sponsor it and distribute it. And, it's wonderful to see what works and what doesn't work. So we're going to go back a little bit in time. This is an animated film. It's called Everybody's Business, and is basically made by Jerry Fairbanks, who was an animation company. They did a lot of sponsored films. They did a lot of ads. So here's Everybody's Business. Enjoy. Sorry, that was John Sutherland, not Jerry Fairbanks.
It wasn't so long ago in the history of man's voyage toward a better world that ships were carrying eager passengers toward the shores of a new nation that was just in the building. Our forefathers were constructing the foundation of this nation by interlocking inseparably the blocks of our political and economic freedoms. Life our forefathers established on this foundation of freedoms drew people from the far corners of the earth, and all those who set foot on these shores had the opportunity to build a better life out. Then young Jonathan, an unskilled lad from across the sea, hoped to find a job where he could progress according to his ability and enterprise. As the years passed, Jonathan's earnings increased. But he still felt that for a man of his skill, it was about time for another raise.
Mr. Blessgravy, am I not the best crown rounder and brim trimmer in ye business? Mm-hmm. Then verily, methinks I am worth more moolah.
That you are, Jonathan. I'm sorry, lad.
No raise, Mr. Blessgravy? I quit. Sales and profits down. Phooey. I could run ye business better myself. Hey, why not? My own business. All you need's a little capital, a little push, and an idea. Yeah, an idea. Let's see.
So I said to him, I wouldn't wear that hat to a dog fight. Why, there isn't a decent hat in the entire village. And such prices. Imagine paying that much for a poke bonnet. Why, it was an awful thing.
Why not? Women's hats. My own business.
Fortunately, Jonathan was thrifty enough to keep a little nest egg for such an emergency. Well, the cost of the building took care of the nest egg. And there was nothing left to pay for the necessary tools and equipment. But happily, Jonathan had a good reputation. And as his idea promised a profit, his friends and neighbors were willing to invest some of their savings in his new business. In the nick of time, an enterprising chap showed up with the raw materials to make hats. And before long, Jonathan was open for business. First, he had to advertise.
Shop at Bonton, it's the spot. 12 new hat styles, that's a lot. Ladies, get that new hat drill. 30 days to pay your bill.
As an expert salesman, Jonathan demonstrated the superior style and quality of his product. He set a price for his creations that the consumer was willing to pay, and sales dollars poured in from satisfied customers. Jonathan had big dreams of the wonderful rewards of being in business for himself. But before he could buy what he wanted, his employees' wages had to be paid. He had to pay taxes. And his friends who helped finance the business had to be paid a return on their investment. When all of his bills were paid, Jonathan had to exchange his big dream for a little dream.
Mesdames, mademoiselles, it is the privilege of Alphonse, hat stylist to all the crowned heads of Europe, to bring you hats with style so chic, a quality magnifique, and a price, ooh la la, so low. Come one, come all to the grand opening.
To meet competition, Jonathan had to plow part of his profits back into the business to develop a better hat. If customers approved the quality, style, and price of Jonathan's new designs, he still could make his dreams come true. With the passing years, this strong foundation of freedoms protected the dignity of the individual and his family, gave everyone the right to worship as he pleased, and promised anyone with ability and enterprise the opportunity to participate in the building of the American way of life as we know it today. A way of life that depends upon millions of thrifty Americans who send a portion of their savings to work in our business system each year. People from all walks of life, workers, farmers, housewives, all of us send our dollars to work in our business system in the hope of earning dividends or interest on our investments. Anyone who has an insurance policy, a bank deposit, or a share of stock is helping to finance our business system. A constant stream of savings dollars must flow into big and small business each year. These dollars help to buy the land, the buildings, the tools and equipment, and create new job opportunities for our expanding population. The goods we produce are distributed to main streets all over the country.
While the Main Street of today doesn't look much like the Main Street of Jonathan's time, the principles of our business system remain the same. For businessmen still compete with one another for the consumer's supply of spendable dollars. And Mrs. Consumer is still mighty critical of everything she buys. Uh-oh, competition. The management of every business has a continuing problem to improve their product to stay ahead of competition, or else.
Okay, men, this is it. Quick Chill's got the ball. We've got to get it back. Give them that new product play. More style, better quality, new features, and at the right price. Hit the line, men. Let's go.
Micrometer, wrench, file, caliper, flight rule.
In addition to creating a better product, management develops new tools and more efficient methods to help workers turn out more boxes to sell at a price Mrs. Consumer will pay. New features about this better product are advertised to point out its competitive advantages.
The Auto Magic Permafreeze, with plenty of room for groceries galore. The Auto Magic Permafreeze, with the super duper store-o-matic door. Just press the button for your ice, a feature that is new, and extra space all over the place for other items too. In the Auto Magic Permafreeze, so see your dealer right away. Get a Permafreeze today.
Ah, yes, dear lady. Permafreeze is your kind of refrigerator. High quality at a low price.
Sales dollars from satisfied customers once again flow back to Permafreeze. A successful business must have enough sales dollars coming in to enable management to pay the expenses of doing business, such as salaries and wages, materials and supplies, research and product development, plant maintenance and repair. In addition to all of these bills, management has to pay taxes to local, state, and federal governments. Any money that's left over is known as profit. Wise management plows part of it back into the business. The remainder of the profit is paid out as dividends. These dividends are sent back to investors as a reward for risking their savings in the American business system. Although occasionally some of us pick a lemon and have to take a loss. The constant investment of our savings through good times and bad has enabled our competitive business system to continue to increase the production of more and better goods to meet the demands of our rising population for a better standard of living. For example, it was only a little more than half a century ago that the average worker had only inefficient tools to help him turn out a product. Low production meant low wages. In 1900, many men had to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, to earn enough money to provide their families with the bare essentials. Hand labor was the rule in the home as well as the factory. In many families, the youngsters had to work to add their earnings to the family budget and forego the opportunity to get an education. And with most families in those days, the standard of living left much to be desired. A half-century later, we had invested enough in our business system to provide the average worker with efficient and expensive buildings and machinery to enable him to produce enough in a 40-hour week to earn twice as much as the 1900 worker earned in a 60-hour week. This shorter work week gives us all more leisure time to enjoy a standard of living beyond the wildest dreams of anyone who lived a half-century ago. The more we earn, the more our families have to spend for the things they need and want. Young people today have leisure time for fun and enjoy educational opportunities denied their fathers and grandfathers. And fortunately, we have been able to raise our standard of living without sacrificing the spiritual side of life, which means so much to the American family. Our business system has continued to provide a better life for our increasing population, in spite of destructive forces which have pounded against our foundation of freedoms with no avail. However, wars, or the threat of wars, interrupt the normal operations of our competitive business system and may result in government controls which crack essential blocks in our foundation of freedoms. In World War II, wages were controlled. Many workers were frozen to their jobs. Farm prices were controlled. And profits of business were limited. Raw materials were allocated between essential and non-essential business. On Main Street, USA, many of us found less to buy because a good portion of our productive capacity went to the war effort. Prices were fixed, and the available supply of goods was rationed. In war emergencies, we allow government to restrict certain of our freedoms. But we Americans have learned to remove government controls as quickly as possible and to repair the blocks in the foundation of our freedoms to allow our business system to resume its normal operations. While we invest part of our savings to help finance the world's most efficient business system, at the same time we pay taxes to government to finance many kinds of services which also contribute to our way of life. For example, our taxes must provide the necessary funds to improve and expand our school system. Our taxes must be sufficient to pay for city streets, health, fire, and police protection, and of course, aid to the needy. Our state taxes help pay for highways, educational institutions, and among other things, help to finance important experiments to increase the productivity of our farms. Our federal taxes pay for irrigation and reclamation projects, for national parks, postal services, the Weather Bureau, and many other services. Our taxes have to pay for the enormous cost of past wars and provide the funds for a defense program which will ensure the safety of our country. In addition, all of us should be willing to pay whatever taxes are necessary to enable efficient government to improve or expand any essential service. But with our present tax load, we should avoid pressuring government for any new services that aren't absolutely necessary. Because we all know the more our government provides, the more taxes it's forced to collect. None of us can escape. Big business. Small business. Farmers. Workers. Housewives and all of us have to pay our share. Demanding more and more from government could create a tax burden heavy enough to crack essential blocks in the foundation of our business system. Therefore, we shouldn't let our taxes reach a point where they destroy our ability to save and invest. For as we have seen, our rising standard of living depends upon a constant savings dollars into our business system each year. In the future of our country, waves of destructive forces will continue to batter against our foundation. When any force weakens the interlocked blocks of our political and economic freedoms, as good citizens, we must be quick to use the tools our Constitution gives us and repair any cracks that may appear. As long as we keep the foundation of our business system strong, we shall be able to maintain and improve the way of life our forefathers conceived and established. A way of life which gave everyone who came to this country the chance to progress according to his ability and enterprise. Like the youth of yesterday, the young people of today deserve the same opportunity to earn success and accomplishment. And on this foundation of freedoms, continue to build a better life for themselves and their fellow man in the world of tomorrow.
Woo! That was a pretty film. Beautiful animation. If you do a little bit of research, the United States Chamber of Commerce does not always go on the side of progressive politics. They tend to be very industry and business corporation friendly and not so much to the average person. So, yeah, sorry about that. It's interesting to watch. But you know what I realized is I haven't shown a film about food yet. It's like almost 2 o'clock, or it is 2 o'clock, but we gotta watch a film about food. So here we go. Maybe this will give you an idea of what to make for lunch if you haven't made something. So here we go. Let's make a sandwich.
The sandwich is practically an American institution. It is a basic essential for lunch boxes, parties, and picnics. As far as these boys are concerned, well, hamburgers and hot dogs are their idea of a really good meal. But there are sandwiches and sandwiches. When Sally Gasco and her mother bring guests home for a late snack after a movie, they have something special in the way of a sandwich in mind. Sally calls it tuna rarebit. Let's watch how she makes it. This is a sandwich for forks, an open-face creation, in other words, with a cheese, milk, and tuna fish mixture on top. The basis will be rye bread, Mother's idea. She found that the spicy caraway flavor made a good contrast to the bland fish and cheese. So the edges won't harden and curl when toasted, and so they'll be easier to eat later. She cuts them lightly with a knife. Sally puts a cube, about a square inch, of butter into the top of a double boiler. A little butter finds its way into a great many dishes in this kitchen, not only for flavor, but as a blending agent. Part of the trick to entertaining unexpected guests is keeping on hand certain generally useful foods. One of these is cheese of an easy melting type, which Sally is going to use as a base for the rarebit. To speed the melting, she cuts this into slices in the milk and butter mixture, while Mother butters the bread. The simmer flame keeps the water boiling gently while the cheese is melting, so that Sally can go on to other tasks. She adds the canned chunk-style tuna fish, and notice that she uses a wooden spoon to avoid discoloration of the mixture. Although the tuna rarebit is fairly substantial food in itself, it is a good idea to add something for variation in color and texture. Mother is making a salad dish: celery, radishes, olives, and pickles. Sally adds potato chips to the menu. They used to be exclusively picnic fare, but they've joined the host of useful accessory foods which make entertaining so much easier and more fun for teenagers. The bread was toasted quickly in the broiler, and the rarebit is nearly ready to serve. Let's see. What will be the beverage? Mother thinks she'll give the guests a choice of Coke or milk. When you can offer guests a choice easily, it's a gracious gesture. Now it's time to serve. 2 slices of toast are neatly arranged on each plate, and the filling, or perhaps we should say covering, goes on top. Sally knows you should serve cream dishes with extra caution. An effective carelessness here is no asset. Mother is a great believer in the aesthetic value of parsley, and of course it's good to eat, too. Now a touch of Tabasco for color and a taste surprise, and there's tuna rarebit a la Sally Gasco. As we said, there are sandwiches and sandwiches. A wise young homemaker using good techniques and equipment and a little imagination can turn a sandwich into festive fare.
So some of you are very astute, and you noticed that this was brought to you by your gas company, and the name of the main character is Sally Gasco, short for gas company. And yes, these are little short promotional films, probably shown in home ec, and then wherever. I mean, basically, and I have another one in this series, which is Let's Prepare Dinner. And it's about how to prepare dinner in like 20 minutes for people that are showing up at the last minute. And it also features Sally Gasco. Yeah, so this is a glorious, glorious film. And I did find actually later, I have a copy of this film in color, but I just did not have that one handy to digitize. And it has some weird artifacts, like where the film emulsion has cracked on the side. It has these sharp black lines. It looks kind of weird. Anyhow, thanks everybody for coming out today. We're just going to keep doing this for the week, for the rest of the week, because I got a bunch of films. I just downloaded another 300 films that we had just digitized over the last month, and so we have a lot to pull from. And I even had extra stuff that I haven't even shown today that I wanted to show, but I've run out of time. But I'm going to go ahead and leave you with something, a fascinating film. It's called Life with Grandpa, and it was made in 1949 by March of Time. And it talks about what it's like to be old and what are the challenges of senior citizens in 1949. Like what is, you have people who are now retiring, you have Social Security. What does that mean? And so it's kind of fascinating to watch, but yeah, so thanks so much for tuning in. If you like what you saw, you want to donate, there's a Patreon link there. The real way you can help AV Geeks is just share this. Tell people that we're doing this. A lot of these have been archived. I don't think I've had any copyright strikes that have knocked them off YouTube or Facebook. So, go back, watch, share with friends, have people join us for lunch tomorrow. It's great to see all you folks coming in, chiming in, and sharing this time together. That's the best part of it. You don't even have to donate money to us. In fact, what I would say is if you want to donate money, find local businesses, local artists who are scrambling because they don't have venues where they can sell their art or do their art or sell what they sell because of lockdowns on what they can do and people getting out there. So do that. I'm still making money from stock footage because I'm selling stock footage from around the world, which is great. But, maybe that will crap out at some point. But whatever. Thanks again for coming out. Let's watch Life of Grandpa. You have a good rest of your Monday. Bye.
For generations, man's lifespan has been slowly lengthening. In the past century, the number of people in the United States aged 65 or over has increased 3 times as fast as the rest of the population. Today, there are some 11 million who have reached this age, and by 1980, there will be 19 million, thanks to science's increasing success in combating the killer diseases. So far has science progressed that the U.S. citizen born in 1948 can look forward to a life 27 years longer on an average than that of one born a century earlier. And this figure should go even higher in years to come, according to many medical men, among them Philadelphia's Dr. Edward Bortz, a former president of the American Medical Association.
Today, man reaches physical maturity at 25, emotional maturity at 35, intellectual maturity around 45, but spiritual maturity comes even in the later years. A human being should have a life expectancy of 150 years instead of something less than half that.
The lengthening span of man's life is not due to any great success in battling the diseases of old age. Though doctors and research scientists are focusing their attention more and more on such diseases, their progress has been slow. Degenerative ailments of the heart and blood vessels which attack the aged are still far from being conquered. These and other maladies which come with advancing years remain major medical problems. There are more old people alive today, chiefly because of science's remarkable achievement during the past half-century in conquering the communicable diseases, those which cut people down while they are still young. The record in controlling the infectious ailments of childhood has been particularly striking. Diphtheria, once one of the 10 leading causes of death, has all but disappeared. Though tuberculosis, particularly deadly to the young, is still a disease of major importance, it is now reduced to 7th rank. And pneumonia, which was formerly one of the most fatal of maladies, is now barely holding on to 6th place. Out of the research institutions of Europe and America has come a series of discoveries in recent years which rank among the major achievements in medical history. The so-called wonder drugs alone, such as the sulfa group, penicillin, streptomycin, and the other antibiotics, have saved millions who might have died at an early age. The nation's pharmaceutical industry, applying itself to the service of science, has made a great contribution to the health of the American people by solving the problem of producing cheaply and in quantity the miracle drugs men of medicine have discovered. Today, mass production places once scarce and costly medicinals in every drugstore in the land at prices within the reach of all who need them. But a country whose industry has always been geared to the employment of young people has so far failed to make a useful place in society for its increasing population of oldsters. Despite much expert opinion to the contrary, many employers refuse to believe that older men can handle the massive machines of modern factories and keep up with the inexorable pace of the production line.
kind of reliable, painstaking craftsmanship which enables experienced oldsters to excel at handwork and precision work is immensely valuable when it is needed. But these skills, so vital in generations past, are playing a smaller part in American industry. Thus, to the nation's older men and women, the extra years of active life bestowed upon them by science may be a dubious asset. All too often, they are finding themselves unwanted and discarded in an age when they still have much to give.
And I want you to know, Harry, how sorry the whole company is to see you retire.
Well, you're no sorrier than I am, Ed. I may be 60, but I feel just as young as I did 15 years ago.
You betcha, Harry. But we want you to have time to tend that garden of yours and do a little fishing.
Retirement frequently brings serious financial problems.
What are we going to do? We can't live on your pension. It won't cover our food bills.
Well, maybe I can get some kind of a job.
Most of the utopian schemes offered America's old folks in the 30s attracted little support and soon dropped out of the public sight. Only survivor and best known of the Depression-born pension plans is the Townsend Plan, which was founded in 1933 by a mild-mannered California doctor named Francis E. Townsend. The doctor's program swept the country, and in the first 2 years of its existence, the Townsend Plan gained millions of adherents over 60, all eager to receive a monthly check of $200.
Here's the Townsend Plan by day, where it will set the nation free from the thraldom of depression and the scourge of poverty. It will give the young man labor, it will set the old man free from the curse of poverty.
Though the Townsend Plan has failed of adoption, the plight of the nation's old people was recognized in the passage of the Social Security Act, one of the most important measures enacted into law during the first administration of President Franklin D. Roosevelt.
It seems to me that if the Senate and the House of Representatives in this long and arduous session had done nothing more than pass this security bill, Social Security Act, the session would be regarded as historic for all time.
The Social Security Act provided retirement benefits for eligible workers of 65 or over. Millions of men and women in private industry and commerce were issued cards by the Office of Social Security, entitling them to partial protection against destitution in their old age. But the benefits, averaging under $30 a month, were too slim to offer much security, while more than 30 million workers were not covered at all. Upon Congress, as part of his proposal to widen the scope of Social Security, President Truman urged the enactment of a broader old age pension program.
These are the people who depend upon the benefits being paid under the old age and survivors insurance system. I also hope that the protection of this system will be extended to the millions who are not now covered.
Due largely to the inadequacy of Social Security coverage, almost 2.5 million old men and women today are dependent on local and state-administered relief. Many states demand that applicants for old age relief take a pauper's oath, and some insist that if the pensioner ever receives any money from any other source, he must repay the funds allotted by the state. For many others, old age is simply a monotonous routine of living out the last years of life in an atmosphere of dreary hopelessness. Though much progress has been made in recent years toward the elimination of almshouses, there are still some 1,300 in the U.S. today, housing 100,000 unwanted American men and women. In these establishments, there is no provision for combating the greatest enemies of the aging, loneliness and a feeling of uselessness. Shut off from the world and deprived of a chance to cultivate their former interests, forgotten and ignored, the old folks in American poorhouses have very little to live for. Countless other men and women who have families able to support them must reconcile themselves to living out their lives as dependents. Though older women usually adjust themselves readily, life for Grandpa under such circumstances is often more difficult.
I'm sorry, Dad, but Bill's having some friends in for poker. I'm afraid you'll have to go upstairs.
Will you turn off that long hair music?
Recognizing the dimensions of this tragedy, many enlightened communities are seeking ways to give point and purpose to the lives of the aged. Institutions like the Hudson Community Center in New York, working on the theory that the best defense against unhappiness in old age is keeping active, offer older men and women programs which are both recreational and educational. Like any age group, the old folks need an opportunity to study and do, to develop an interest in an art or craft. Oldsters with such interests are invariably healthier, happier men and women. But many authorities believe that only by keeping able older workers productively and gainfully employed can any real solution to their problem be effected. In New York, the privately endowed Federation Employment Service is conducting an active campaign to break down the widespread prejudice against older workers and to place them in jobs for which they are fitted. This service has succeeded in placing many unfortunate oldsters who would otherwise have gone on relief. That men and women of advanced years can be trusted with important jobs has been demonstrated again and again, notably by the Ithaca Gun Company of Ithaca, New York. In this plant, older workers are preferred for their steadiness and dependability, as well as for the superior quality of their work. Here, anyone less than 60 rates as a youngster.
Well, Lou, I think that new lad in the boiling room is going to work out all right.
Well, he's had a lot of experience. He's nearly 65 years old, isn't he?
Listen, son, I don't consider a man experienced till he's past 80.
Today, almost 4 million oldsters are employed at jobs which render them self-supporting. That many millions more are capable of employment, no recognized authority doubts. There have always been people who remained productive in their later years, but in our time, there have been many more of them. Connie Mack, one of baseball's outstanding managers despite his 80-odd years. Dorothy Dix, ready to leave her 70s, still dispensing her timeless advice to the lovelorn.
You're making a great mistake in wasting yourself on a married man.
Winston Churchill, at 3/4 of a century, still one of the towering figures of his time in world affairs.
We cannot aim at anything less than the union of Europe as a whole, and we look forward with confidence to the day when that union will be achieved.
George Bernard Shaw, retaining his buoyant spirit and characteristic keenness of mind, and continuing his provocative writings well into his 90s.
The one thing I never wanted to be was to be a writer. And the reason was that I was a born writer. The thing was as natural to me as the taste of water in my mouth. It has no taste because it's always there. At least it's always in my mouth because I'm a teetotaler.
Less famous but equally successful in the difficult art of growing old contentedly are thousands of anonymous men and women who, in their own quiet way, have continued to lead happy, full-freighted lives well past the age at which most old people have to submit to being shelved. But for all that is being done to extend the active, self-supporting years, most oldsters must sooner or later come to depend either on the government on private pensions or on their own savings. Realizing this, more and more U.S. citizens are taking care to put by during their productive years money enough to see them comfortably through their old age. In resorts like St. Petersburg, Florida, the number of people whose savings and pensions have enabled them to retire is steadily increasing. At the height of the winter season, there are more men and women over 60 in St. Petersburg than in any other community its size in the country. Though more and more people are realizing the necessity of preparing in advance for a secure old age, those who can look forward to a retirement made comfortable through their own efforts are likely to remain a minority for years to come. Until America's aged can count with some certainty on growing old in peace of mind, in dignity, and in security, their problem will remain a responsibility incumbent upon all the people of the United States.
See you guys tomorrow. Hope you had a good lunch. Love you guys. Love yourselves. Reach out to friends, family that might be lonely. Even though you can't see them physically, doing it remotely can do wonders. So take care. See you tomorrow. Bye.